What's going on, guys? My name is Wade with TechDaily, and in this video, we're going to be doing a camera comparison test between the Samsung Galaxy A71, the Samsung Galaxy A51, and the Samsung Galaxy A31. This has probably been the most highly requested camera comparison I've seen from you guys in recent weeks, and I can totally see why. These three phones are sort of the upper end of the Samsung A series line right now, and while they are kind of similar devices, their varying price points and different features and specs means that you may have to make some decisions in figuring out which phone is best for you. Now, I have already compared all of these phones to one another in previous videos, like their size, their specs, features, and stuff like that. But in this video, we're strictly going to be looking at picture and video samples. And I will still talk about some of the hardware and software differences you'll come across with these phones as well. But before we get started, I do want to mention that all three of these phones are starting to come down a bit in price. And if you're interested in doing some comparison shopping of your own, or maybe want to buy one of these phones for yourself, I'll have some links to each of these devices at their lowest prices down below in the video description. The A71 on Amazon is now listed for $362. The A51 I've seen as low as $272, and the A31, which just came out, is under $250 now, so plenty of chances to get a good deal. Before we jump into the picture and video samples, I do want to just go over the hardware specs and software differences with each phone, so you have an idea of what we're working with. If you're not interested in that, that's totally okay. Feel free to just jump ahead in the video. Now, when we're doing camera comparisons, there's really three things that come into play. The first is obviously the actual camera lenses themselves, the hardware each phone packs. And with each of these devices, while they all have a quad lens setup, obviously, we are dealing with a little different specs. The most expensive of the three phones, the A71, has the best camera specs, as you might expect. Around back, this phone offers a 64 megapixel f1.8 aperture main lens, a 12 megapixel ultra-wide lens, a 5 megapixel macro lens, and a 5 megapixel depth sensor. The slightly cheaper A51 has a 48 megapixel f2.0 aperture main lens, but the 12 megapixel ultra-wide, the 5 megapixel macro lens, and the 5 megapixel depth sensor are actually the same. With the cheapest phone in the bunch, the A31, we get the same 48 megapixel f2.0 main lens this time, but a less capable 8 megapixel ultra-wide camera, and the same 5 megapixel macro and 5 megapixel depth sensor as the other two. So to just sum it all up really easily, all three phones have the same macro lens and the same depth sensing lens. Going from the A31 to the A51, you get a better ultra-wide lens, and jumping from the A51 to the A71, you again get an even better ultra-wide lens and a better main lens as well. When it comes to the front cameras, we've got some differences here too. The A31 has a 12 megapixel f2.2 aperture lens, with both the A51 and A71 having a 32 megapixel f2.2 lens. But the camera hardware, the actual lenses, that's just one part of the equation. The second thing to consider is the processor that powers each phone. A more powerful chipset in one phone often means that images and videos can be processed better and will yield a higher quality, more detailed, and better looking picture, even if the camera lenses are the same. As you'd expect, the A71 has the most powerful processor, a Snapdragon 730 series chip paired with the Adreno 618 GPU and 6 or 8 gigs of RAM. The A51 packs the Exynos 9611 processor, Mali G72 GPU, and 4, 6, or 8 gigs of RAM. And the A31 has the MediaTek Helio P65 processor and either 4 or 6 gigs of RAM. Now, all of this stuff is important because when we start to consider live focus shots, for example, that utilize the same depth sensing lens, or standard pics from the main lens where the specs might be the same, the different results are primarily caused by one phone having better internal specs over another. The final thing to consider with each of these phones are the various software features they offer. Now, for the most part, since these are all 2020 Samsung devices, you'll find most of the same shooting modes and capabilities in the camera app, but there are a few key things I want to point out. First off, the A71 A71 and the A51 can shoot 4K video with the rear lens, while the A31 cannot. This is the same up front as well. The A71 and A51 can shoot 4K selfie videos, while the A31 can't. And I think the biggest difference here is actually the A31's lack of any sort of night mode entirely. Beyond that, the A31 also lacks slow-mo, super slow-mo, and hyperlapse video shooting modes, while both the other phones offer those. And one final thing that's different, the A71 and A51 have an additional video stabilization feature you can utilize, while once again, the A31 doesn't have it. All in all, you're simply just missing out on potentially much more going with the A31. So now that you're aware of all the differences, let's jump into some picture and video samples. With this first set here, I think the most obvious thing that jumps out at me right away is the color difference with each shot. To me, the A71 seems to be the most vibrant, almost a little too saturated, while the A51 comes off a bit pale, and the A31 surprisingly feels the most well-balanced. I think the two things in particular I see are the sky, of course, and the color of my shirt as well. With the A51, the blues look a little washed out, and even my skin tone seems a bit pale too. Still not a bad shot though, and really all three of these pictures I think still look pretty good. When we move over to portrait mode, once again, the color temperature difference really stands out. The A71 is a bit warm, sort of with a yellow tint. The A51 is cooler and more blue, while the A31 might have gotten it all just right. However, the big thing to consider here is detail. If you take a look at my hair especially, the A71 captures every little strand, while things get gradually more blurry with the A51 and the A31. And not only does that have to do with the slightly better lens on the A71, but also the more powerful processor that can better capture and process all the little things in every shot. This is another prime example of the big difference in color you might come across, mainly with the A71. What's going on here is just the phone's propensity to overcompensate, add a filter, analyze the object, and attempt to liven up the scene altogether. This is of course something you can disable or mess around with, but I just thought it was pretty crazy how much in this case the A71 changed the scene almost entirely compared to the other two phones. I'm not sure if that's a positive necessarily. Of course every picture is different, but with this shot in particular, it really altered that flower. This shot is a little less obvious, but still apparent when these are compared side by side. You may like that crazy vibrant color, but I actually think the A51 looks the best here. It's the most natural and easily the best balanced shot. When we move over to the wide angle, I think you'll see the noticeable difference on the A31 since it's the phone with the less powerful lens compared with the other two. I think the big thing here is just that the A31 looks a little dark and a little less vibrant. Fortunately though, again, not a bad shot at all, but you still will be able to tell a difference with each wide angle shot on the A31 versus the other two phones. When it comes to selfies, these three phones are wildly different, and unfortunately this is probably where the A31 lags behind the most. The pictures on the A71 and A51 aren't bad, a little different in their color temperature once again for sure, and this time I think the A71 actually took the better shot. But when we move over to the A31, it just looks like it was taken with a phone that almost shouldn't be in this lineup. It's overexposed, it's oddly pinkish, and all in all, it's just the one thing that really stands out in this camera comparison test. The A31, for whatever reason, is just not that good of a selfie taker. As the lights go down, the thing that surprised me the most was that while the A31 does not have a dedicated night mode, it actually doesn't perform too badly without it. The A71 and A51 obviously have the opportunity to bring out a lot more detail and lighten up the shot a bit, but the A31, as it is, it's still a good enough picture, I think. Obviously, there's a lot of detail lost, and collectively it's much darker. There's just a lot missing here, but you can still tell what's going on. I'm gonna miss night mode as a whole with this phone, but it's at least reassuring knowing the A31 can still see in the dark. With video, like I mentioned before, with the A71 and A51 having 4K capabilities, you can certainly capture a bit more detail and get a better shot. But in my opinion, the difference is actually not that noticeable. The thing that I would focus more on is the A71 and A51 having extra stabilization options in their 1080p shooting modes that the A31 doesn't have. That to me is more valuable than anything else because really all three of these phones are shaky without it. Maybe the A71 is a tiny bit better, but not by much. So enough talking, I'm gonna just go ahead and let the rest of these picture and video samples play through for you guys so you can analyze and critique them for yourself. Let me know what you think of everything in the comments down below, and I'll catch back up with you guys at the end of this video. So all in all, I think what surprised me the most was just how different these phones tended to be in certain situations. I honestly do think that each device has the potential to take a good shot. Even the A31 with all its limitations and missing features. I didn't have too many complaints aside from the selfie camera, of course. You will likely be getting the most out of the A71 since it is the best of the best, but if you are on a budget and want to save some money, it's reassuring to know at least that you aren't exactly getting a significantly worse picture and video taker. And I think that's the biggest takeaway. So there you go. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. Let me know what you think of each of these phones in the comments down below. I'd love to know your thoughts, of course. Be sure to follow TechDaily on Twitter and subscribe to the TechDaily YouTube channel if you haven't already. And I'll see you guys later.